Within these modern times of revelation, Christ made it known. In the beginning, it was one God and no religion. I repeat, in the beginning, it was one God and no religion. While his Father, the author of all scriptures, for it is written in 2 Timothy that all scriptures is God breathed, he let it be known that the heathens are around. So why would you repeat what the heathens say? Whatever the heathens say, notice, think the opposite. If the heathens told you that Jesus is God, he is not God. If the heathens told you that Jesus is white, he is not white. If the heathens told you that Jesus is Christ, he is not Christ. Whatever the heathens told you are meant to misguide you. So let's watch what a heathen is. In the Bible, heathen generally refers to nations or individuals who do not worship the God of Israel. Don't forget, Israel has 12 tribes, and it's not called the 12 tribes of Jesus. Therefore, Jesus is not Israel. Jesus is not God. The God of Israel is Israel himself. So let's watch some of the people that change up the stories.
Read you like
read me whatever you like.
Yeah, there's some verses that I actually pulled out of the Talmud, and
go ahead. Yeah.
And this is not going to be me trying to argue it or anything of the sort. I'm just going to read it plainly from the Talmud itself. Like if you look at Sanhedrin 59a, murdering goyim is like killing a wild animal. Avodah Zarah 26b, even the best of the Gentiles should be killed. Sanhedrin 59a, a goy who pries into the law, which means the Talmud, is guilty of death. This is why you can't even trust a Jew when you're talking about the Talmud, because you're trained to lie about it in the first place. Or you look at Liber David 37.
Don't forget, it goes from the Bible to the Torah, Talmud, to the Quran. So the Bible comes first. Then the heathens created their own versions of a Bible, which was written in Ethiopia, in Ge'ez. That's why Ge'ez is the oldest language in the world. It's God's language from the beginning.
Communicate anything to a goy about our religious relations would be equal to the killing of all Jews. For if the goyim knew what we teach about them, they would kill us openly. Can you make this up? Yevamot 11b. Sexual intercourse with a little girl is permitted if she is 3 years of age. Tikkun Hakam X1. Do not save goyim in the danger of death. In the same excerpt, show no mercy to the goyim. Like, I can go on and on. I basically was prying to the Talmud.
You could go on and on, so let's read. Ethiopian Bible, first book of Maccabean. After Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came from the land of Kittim, had defeated Darius, king of the Persians, and the Medes. In other words, the Greek kingdom includes Iran and Iraq. They also include Rome, because Rome is part of the kingdom of the Greeks. It also includes Egypt and Jerusalem. It also includes Babylon, because they're the Medes, and Asia, and Egypt, and Syria. And don't forget Seleucus, who was part of the kingdom of the Greeks, married the queen of Syria, and he became the king of Asia. So let's read. This Jesus was the son of Sirach, grandchild to Jesus. This man therefore lived in the latter times, after the people had been led away captive and called home again. Don't forget, transatlantic slavery started in 1619. So this is going to happen around 2049 when Jesus is going to be alive with his grandchild. So currently Jesus is around 33 years old. So he should have a son already. So now his grandfather Jesus, as he himself witnesses, was a man of great diligence and wisdom. That's when the first Jesus is going to appear to die. But in the end, God is going to lift him up to have an everlasting life as the judge in Israel. While Sirach's son gave his book to his own son Jesus. And this Jesus did imitate Solomon. In other words, Solomon is the great-grandfather to Jesus' grandson. Understand? Because Solomon is just another name for David. If you read Psalm 72, it's a Psalm of Solomon. And when it ended, the Psalms of David, the son of Jesse, has ended. In other words, Solomon is just another name for David. In other words, King David named Solomon after himself. So Solomon is one of Jesus' dad's names. And he was no less famous for wisdom and learning, both being indeed a man of great learning and so reputed also. In other words, they're all supposed to be here now in the latter times. That's why in Ezekiel 38, it lets you know that Sheba, who's supposed to be with Solomon, is here in the latter times or in the final part of the years. But these people keep changing up the story.
mistakes. He made mistakes. He forgot things.
Now watch the argument and rebuttal. It's so sweet.
He's supposed to know his divine mission, right? And he's but yet on the cross, he's looking up to the sky. My God.
You get it? A Muslim is telling a Catholic that Jesus died 2,000 years on the cross. No, he was never here on the cross. He's supposed to be here in the latter times. And he's not supposed to die on the cross. He's supposed to die through fire. Anyway, the confusion just continues and continues. Why? Because of the heathens. You got to know who the heathens are. So if you keep repeating the Hebrew Bible said this, and this said that, and that, no, they're all part of the heathens. So why repeat the heathens? And notice that Ethiopia Bible warned us about them.
God, my God, why have you forsaken me? So why would God think that God forsaken me? He forgot.
Right, Jesus cannot be God, and he was not here. And that story was made up in the 1500s in Europe. That's when they created the Old and New Testament format. So they had to create a whole bunch of stuff. And they weren't the only ones.
When they say to you, there's a book written 60 years after Jesus. When the Quran written?
That question is up to me.
When the Hadith written? The Hadith is 300 years after Muhammad. When the Quran written? The Muslims until now didn't have the Quran of Muhammad.
Right, Muhammad never spoke to Allah, right? And then 300 years after Muhammad died, some next guy wrote the book. And that's what people are following. So basically the heathens created division among their nations, amongst the people. So we are all fighting for different religions, not knowing that they're all in cahoots with each other. And if you look at it, they're all under the Roman calendar. So whether they're Muslim, Jewish, Catholic, they all follow the Roman calendar. As you just see earlier, Rome is part of the Greek nation.
Neither the Quran of Uthman, neither the Quran we have today, the most popular Quran is called the Mus'haf of Uthman. Nobody have it. They have it according to the recitation of a guy, his name is Hafs. And Hafs was exist 200 years after Muhammad. So look at the hypocrisy. They say to you, there's a Bible written 60 years after Jesus. We don't accept it, but we accept the Quran given to us 200 years by recitation, not by writing.
So let's pay attention. Remember, Jesus is supposed to be here in the latter times. So who is God? And it's not called the 12 tribes of Jesus. You are standing in the house of Jehovah, in the courtyards of our God. Praise Jah, for Jehovah is good. Make melody to his name. For Jah has chosen even Jacob for himself, Israel for his special property. And if you read Genesis 37:3, you will see that Joseph is a favorite son of Israel. That's why Joseph is the one born on Ethiopian Christmas Day. So let's watch. Matthew 1:16. Jacob became father to Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born. So Jacob, who is Israel, is Joseph's father. Therefore, Jesus is a grandchild to God himself. Let's watch.
How many days are between Friday and Sunday, if I can ask you? How many days?
I've had that question from a person I used to stay with in Durban in 1999. I couldn't answer him.
But what?
How you can't answer? It's 2 days. Friday is the 5th day, Sunday is the 7th day on the Ethiopian calendar. Like it's 2 days, it's not 3 days. In other words, someone read the Ethiopian Bible and translated it and created their own version. That's what the heathens did. So people keep repeating what the heathens did without any proof.
Mathematically, don't be religious.
No, I get that. I get that. I get it. But I don't understand why people...
It almost like when religion walks up to you,
blinds you.
It must numb your brain from common sense, so that a simple question like how many days are between Friday and Sunday, you begin to want to chew your thing. It's like almost all the knowledge you went to school for disappears through the window.
But maybe Christianity pushes faith more than rationale. So if you accept it by faith, maybe you don't have to reason.
But faith is not stupid. Faith is knowledge in manifest. Faith, you need to know what you believe in.
Okay.
You cannot believe in nothing.
No.
And therefore, faith is a servant of knowledge.
Okay.
The world perishes not for the lack of faith. The world perishes for lack of knowledge.
In other words, we have to repeat. We have to read and stop repeating. If you keep repeating, then you got problems. For example,
Trinity in less than 30 seconds.
All right, let's see it.
Okay, so the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are each 100% God.
Yeah, that's what Trinitarians say.
That means they should have 100% of the attributes of God.
That's true.
So a question for Christians, is Jesus independent of God the Father or dependent on God the Father? If he's independent of God the Father, that's two ultimate independent existences, meaning two gods. If Jesus is dependent on God the Father, he cannot be 100% God, as God is 100% independent.
Yeah, that checks out. Christians will be upset with me and say he's grifting to Muslims, when really I'm just grifting to the truth. And because the truth comes from a Muslim changes nothing. And actually, I'm frustrated with you.
For we are all sons and daughters of the Most High. So let's not have religions divide us. Because in the beginning was one God and no religion. So in former ages, Ge'ez was the language of the country. Ge'ez was understood by the learned people of the church, but was not readily understood by the ordinary people. Arising from this, the scholars in their preaching and work have for centuries been forced in their teaching to interpret from Ge'ez into Amharic. In other words, the Ethiopian Bible is not translated from the heathens. So if you keep repeating the heathens, you're going to have problems. So remember, follow God, not man.